And good morning. It's 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm Christine Romans. Let's get you current. Breaking this morning, new problems for Taylor Farms. The company now recalling more products linked to that salmonella outbreak that has sickened hundreds. Overseas, Iran issuing new demands for opening the critical Strait of Hormuz. How the Trump administration is responding. A trial 3 decades in the making. The man accused of providing the gun that killed legendary rapper Tupac Shakur. What to expect from jury selection today. And new details this morning about former President Biden's cancer. What his son Hunter is saying about his father's condition. And good to be with you this Monday, August 10th. We've got a lot of news to get to this morning. We begin this hour with breaking news. More fallout in connection to a nationwide salmonella outbreak. Taylor Farms is recalling several of its products made with jalapeños over concerns about potential contamination. It is another setback for the California-based company, which was also linked to the large cyclospora outbreak associated with iceberg lettuce. NBC News Chief Environmental Affairs Correspondent Ann Thompson has the latest.
Hey there, this is just the latest hit in a wave of food safety concerns, and yet another blow for one of the nation's biggest producers of vegetables. Once more, a major warning for everyone to check their refrigerators and get ready to toss out even more. The recall over foodborne illness fears. Taylor Farms overnight announcing a voluntary recall of products made with jalapeno peppers because of possible links to salmonella, impacting customers in 26 states.
I would like to be able to purchase stuff without having to worry.
The new recall includes dips, burritos, and salsa sold in popular stores like Kroger, Target, Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Whole Foods. Taylor Farms says they are not aware of any reported illnesses linked to its products containing jalapenos. The same company recalled products last month during the outbreak of cyclospora tied to iceberg lettuce grown in central Mexico. But now concerns about salmonella are on the rise.
Hey, we've got this problem with salmonella contamination, possibly involving jalapeno peppers.
Officials have been investigating the multi-state outbreak tied to peppers grown in Sinaloa, Mexico. Mexico is where more than half of all vegetables imported to the U.S. are grown. Mexican-style restaurant chains Qdoba and Chipotle announced last week they were protectively removing the suspected jalapenos from their menus. Over the weekend, the FDA also issuing a public health alert about meat and poultry products sold in multiple stores, including Albertsons, H-E-B, and Wawa. That warning mentioning products like wraps, bowls, and salsa containing jalapenos that may be contaminated. Officials urging consumers to check their fridge and freezers and throw out anything that may be affected.
I'm wondering generally, what can we eat? We can't eat lettuce, dairy, poultry. We can't eat jalapenos.
According to Taylor Farms, the latest product recalls have a best if used by date up to and including August 16th. They also say they are no longer sourcing products from a specific farmer in Mexico who could be a source. And they will be filling orders from alternative suppliers. Back to you.
All right, Ann Thompson, thank you, Ann. Now to a high-stakes standoff with Iran and two very different signals about where this crisis is headed. Ongoing negotiations between the two sides appear to be slowing down. Over the weekend, President Trump told Axios, quote, "We are low-keying it on Iran," suggesting the U.S. is, for the moment, in no rush to end the conflict. But Tehran is raising the price for a deal, setting steep demands for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba and NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, let's start with you and those new steep demands from Iran. Walk us through what Iran wants and what those demands tell us about where Tehran stands right now.
Yeah, this is coming from what is sort of like a Politburo, if you will, within the Iranian government, and one of the main leaders of this body, of the National Security Council. He's also a member of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. He came out with a statement saying that in order to meet these demands, the U.S. is going to have to do a couple of things. Never threaten or insult Iran again, which is something that the president has been doing on a regular basis, sometimes more than once a week. Withdraw military forces, presumably from the surrounding region, which means withdrawing them from the U.S. bases in some of those Gulf states that Iran has repeatedly been attacking, lifting sanctions and paying back assets. This, in many ways, sounds like it's basically going to be unfreezing a lot of money that Trump had already criticized the Obama administration for only doing partially. Now it looks as though the Trump administration is going to be on the line for releasing even more money if they hope to make a deal. And finally, damages for war and strikes. Now, this is a big deal. This means that the U.S. is basically going to have to pay war reparations to Iran for everything it did since it started that attack alongside Israel, where I am now, back in late February. This is a long list of very unworkable items from the U.S. side. So it's unclear whether the United States is going to want to sign on to this in order to free up the Strait of Hormuz, or whether the Trump administration is just going to, as you said, low-key it for the time being.
Yeah, Monica, that's what the president is saying the U.S. strategy is, low-keying it on Iran. What are White House officials you're talking to saying about exactly what that means?
I mean, I think to the Trump administration, to the White House right now, Christine, low-keying it is basically just treading water because there hasn't been any progress diplomatically. As you pointed out, the president said that they were semi-negotiating with Iran, but Iran says that even that is not the case, that the actual negotiations, the talks that had been taking place behind the scenes are also at a standstill. So what that means is that the president is sort of repeating language that we have heard time and time again. Remember, he has said that he's in no rush really to end this conflict. And often the president, when asked about the timeline, which we should all remember, he kind of issued as a 4 to 6 week estimate at the start of this. Now we're way past that into the 6 month. He often refers to other U.S. wars that have gone on years and years, sort of saying that that is how Americans should be looking at it. The president also saying in that interview, Christine, though, that it will all work out somehow. He says this is like a chess game and they are still moving the pieces around. But as you know, critically, the economy is such a big piece of this. And the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is the main choke point here and an issue that they cannot resolve is basically why this has become so challenging. And it's also important to point out that the Strait of Hormuz was operating without incident before all of this started at the end of February.
Yeah, in many cases, Monica, it's as if the Iranians know they have new leverage that they didn't have before the war, and they want to keep a hold of that power in the region. So, Monica, the White House strategy right now, then, I guess you said maybe treading water. Any indication that military strikes could resume again soon if the president grows frustrated?
Yeah, I mean, they're not off the table, and that's the way we've been talking about it for many of these past weeks, where the president says at any point he could resume that. But it was just a week ago that he effectively said that one was imminent, a major attack, where he had been issuing all of these specific threats against some critical infrastructure in Iran, only to pull back from that. So again, we are a little bit in this treading water, this rinse and repeat that the president seems in no rush to conclude, even though as we get closer and closer to the midterm elections, the economic ripple effect of this is what is going to become very challenging and problematic. And White House officials behind the scenes acknowledge that. They know that that's a challenge, but it's the president who, when he's asked about it, is often dismissing those concerns.
Yeah, we know the U.S. has been releasing supplies from its emergency gas and oil stockpiles, and those will run out eventually, right? So that has been something that a lever the U.S. doesn't have much to use very much longer. Matt, before we let you go, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now rejecting President Trump's 15-point plan for Gaza. How significant a setback is that? Where does it leave efforts to end that conflict?
Well, I mean, what we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, past couple of months, is actually an extraordinary exchange between Washington on one side and Jerusalem on the other. This president, Donald Trump, who Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had called basically the best friend that Israel has ever had in the White House, has been humiliating and publicly castigating Benjamin Netanyahu on a regular basis and has left him out of several key decisions. The one he made last month, to some fanfare, or I should say Trump's own fanfare, regarding resolving the situation in the Gaza Strip, that was then basically blocked, denied by the Israeli side yesterday for the first time. I spoke with the Prime Minister's spokesman here in Israel, and here's what he said about that rejection by Jerusalem.
We are fed up with Hamas's antics. Hamas is fooling the entire world. Israel's not going to be fooled. Every single day, Hamas is in blatant violation of the 20-point plan. Every single day that goes by that they haven't disarmed, they are essentially sticking their finger in the eye of the President of the United States.
Important to note here, Christine, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, can be stepping up to President Trump, can kind of show off that he's standing up to the U.S. president because he faces a critical election at the end of October, where he's been constantly attacked for capitulating to American demands. Christine?
All right, Monica Alba, Matt Bradley, thank you both. Now to the dangerous weather sweeping across the country. Nearly 50 million people are under heat alerts today. In the Northeast, humidity made it feel well above 90 degrees over the weekend. Meanwhile, crews are still working to contain nearly 100 wildfires burning nationwide, most of them on the West Coast. And in Illinois, severe storms brought torrential rain and flash flooding overnight. Check out this video. This looks like a waterfall pouring off a gutter. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster tracking the extreme conditions from Chicago.
Well, a messy and unfortunate start to the week for some folks here in the Chicago area. That wind and rain that we saw in the storms overnight causing some of the damage that you see behind me. Look at how this branch from this tree crashed down. It's now on several of these cars in the middle of the road, now blocking this road completely for the start of the Monday morning commute. And this is a scene in one neighborhood that's forced to clean up of several neighborhoods, not just here in Chicago, but in Illinois. We saw about 2 hours from where I am now, there were reports of tornadoes. We have dramatic video there of the damage of those tornadoes, or at least that tornado that took place overnight. Of course, the National Weather Service will be confirming that it was in fact a tornado, but you see that menacing funnel cloud in that video. Meanwhile, severe weather we're watching not just here in the Midwest, but we're also watching what's happening out west, where you have fires. More than 100 wildfires are blazing and burning across the Midwest there, including Nevada and in Washington and Nevada, just north of Reno. Evacuation orders are in place. Crews are battling a wildfire there. Meanwhile, in Utah, another blaze has already consumed more than 100,000 acres. We know at least 2 firefighters are being honored this weekend after they lost their lives in that fight with that wildfire. Meanwhile, if you look further east, the story there is going to be the heat. You have across the country more than 50 million people under some sort of hot alert, some sort of heat alert right now. In Plains, you have heat index expected to hit 110 degrees when you combine that heat and humidity across the country. Really tough conditions. And by the way, here in the Chicago area, another round of severe weather expected this afternoon and going into the evening. Back to you.
All right, Shaq Brewster, thanks. Let's turn now to NBC News meteorologist Angie Lassman. Angie, what more can we expect to see today?
Hey there, we've got another day of hot temperatures on tap for us, and you can see these heat alerts up for a whole lot of folks. Upwards of 49 million people included in those across the southern plains, parts of the southwest. This is going to be something that Oklahoma City, St. Louis, Memphis sees through at least the day today, with a couple of records, a handful of them possible across sections of the southern Rockies and plains today. Here's a big picture look at those temperatures, though, this afternoon. 106 degrees is what it'll feel like in Wichita. We've got 105 for the feels like temperature in St. Louis. Farther to the south, New Orleans, Corpus Christi, you will feel like 105. And the East Coast in on this as well. 100 degrees for that heat index value by afternoon in Charlotte. 96 is what it'll feel like in New York City later this afternoon. No relief as we get into tomorrow. Still triple digits for actual temperatures and heat index values across a lot of regions. We've got 105 for what it feels like in Nashville. Baton Rouge tops out at 94, but will feel like 105 as well. And we stay steamy all the way really through the end of our work week in some of these spots. Oklahoma City, you are above 100 until at least Friday. We've got high 90s to high 80s in St. Louis through Wednesday and Thursday. 98 degrees on Wednesday in Charleston, and feeling even warmer than that in a lot of these spots. 107 for Charleston by Wednesday, for what it'll feel like in Mobile. 107 as well on Wednesday. On top of that, some strong storms possible. We've got a severe threat stretching for 43 million people from parts of Illinois all the way to Pennsylvania, and then a chunk of the plains. We're mainly looking at hail and again, damaging wind gusts, but we can't rule out a couple of tornadoes as well. Tomorrow, an even larger threat, 26 million people. The wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour will be possible. Where you see this lighter shaded yellow is where we're most concerned. Indianapolis, Columbus, Charleston, Lynchburg, all included in that. And again, mainly wind and hail going to be the biggest threat, but tornado can't rule that out either. We've got plenty of rain on tap as well, upwards of 3 to 4, even maybe 5 inches in some spots. And we're still dealing with air quality issues across parts of the Pacific Northwest. We'll see that be an issue with those wildfire smokes ongoing as we get through at least the next couple of days. Back to you.
All right, Angie Lastman. Thanks, Angie. We're following breaking news out of Colombia right now, where a 6.6 magnitude earthquake rattled the region earlier today. The epicenter about 250 miles west of Colombia's capital, Bogota. Shaking could be felt as far as Venezuela. This new video just in, local officials say people were hurt in this quake and that there is significant damage to buildings. We will continue to monitor this developing situation. We're going to bring you updates as we get them. The latest on former President Biden's cancer battle, what his son Hunter is saying about his dad's condition. Plus, President Trump's new White House ballroom hits a new snag, why the battle over renovations could find its way to the Supreme Court. And later this hour, Joanna Stern joins us with ways to detect writing produced by AI, what you should look out for. We'll get you current after the break. I'm going to bring in NBC medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. And Dr. Patel, what does what Hunter Biden revealed about his father's cancer say to you about how advanced it is?
Yeah, Christine, it is unfortunate because it does reveal prostate cancer is not one disease. It's many different diseases. And what we understood now from Jill and Hunter Biden's comments is this is aggressive. It's metastatic, which means that the cancer is spread beyond the origin, beyond the prostate, and that it's also spread to the bones. That can be one of the most debilitating, and as you heard from Hunter Biden, very painful. Often the most predominant symptom with that form of metastatic cancer is pain. That pain can be controlled, but it can be very difficult to control. It also does indicate, Christine, as I think you've heard, that this is likely what will not necessarily be the cause of his death, but that some form of cancer will always be present until he dies. And that just tells us this is going to remain a battle for the rest of his life.
Yeah, like millions of other Americans living with cancer. Hunter Biden says his father is in significant pain. That's common, right, for bone cancer? And how do doctors typically manage that kind of pain?
It is. And so prostate cancer in general doesn't have pain as a manifestation. You often see urinary symptoms, things like that. But when we hear about this kind of spread to the bones, pain becomes the predominant feature. Doctors can treat it not just with what one might assume with pain medication. There's actually mechanisms to kind of strengthen and at least decrease any chances of bone fractures when we look at anything that's spread to parts of the bone. And we don't have all these very specific details, Christine, of which parts of the bone and where. Was it in the spine? But depending on where it is, Christine, we can kind of target supportive therapies and things even like radiation, which we've heard that the former president has had different types of treatments. I imagine that's to decrease the burden of the cancer itself and to try to help with some of that pain.
Yeah, I guess let's talk a little bit more about those treatment options at this stage. The goal, I guess, to slow the cancer, manage the pain, a little bit of both?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So again, this is an aggressive, we heard aggressive. What one should kind of infer from that is aggressive means that it can spread quickly and that it can spread to various parts of the body. And that's what we're hearing with the bone pain. So treatment can be aggressively maintained as well to kind of decrease the impact of these symptoms overall and just give the president the ability to do what he wants to do day to day.
All right, Dr. Kavita Patel, thank you so much for that update. The construction of President Trump's planned White House ballroom is on hold after a federal appeals court ruled Congress should have approved the project. The president is now calling on the Supreme Court to overturn the decision. NBC senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us now. Walk us through the developments over the last few days. This court said that the House of the People is basically Congress has to do this. The president is just a temporary tenant.
Yeah, that's right, Christine. Good morning. That $400 million construction project is now up in the air. As you mentioned, the appeals court ruling that the president was a temporary tenant, not the owner of the White House. But the president is arguing that he's not a tenant, that he's the president. And he now wants this fight to go to the Supreme Court. This morning, President Trump's White House ballroom project is in jeopardy after a federal appeals court ruled Congress should have approved the construction process. The court ordered above-ground construction halted, but paused its ruling so the Trump administration can appeal to the Supreme Court. The president calling the ruling an unjust decision that must be overturned by the Supreme Court in its entirety. The president also referring to the ballroom as a desperately needed military center because of national security enhancements being built below ground.
And we're building a great ballroom and a military facility as part of it, and it's incredible.
While most Republicans say they support the project,
I think he sees the need for having a large venue and a safe place to have more people for important meetings.
Some expressing concerns.
He's living in a house. It is not his house. It belongs to the country.
The ballroom part of multiple changes the president is making in Washington. Overnight, the National Park Service announcing it will restrict the public's access to parts of the National Mall for another month as work continues on the reflecting pool. The president also weighing in on that project, posting photos of what he calls vandalism to the pool, and writing U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro should revisit her hastily made decision to drop criminal charges against people accused of damaging the landmark.
She folded like an umbrella.
In a court filing, Pirro's office said flawed installation, not vandalism, caused the pool liner to peel. The president saying, quote, there was also some contractor error done by rushing the job, but it was a very small area, and pledging that it will reopen shortly. Another development over the weekend. Early Saturday morning, the Senate narrowly confirmed the acting attorney general and President Trump's former personal attorney, Todd Blanche, as the official attorney general. Of course, his nomination had drawn a lot of controversy, among other things, for that controversial so-called anti-weaponization fund. Blanche is set to be officially sworn in later today, Christine.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez. Thanks, Gabe. From a suspected mob boss arrested to the discovery of a Roman shipwreck, let's get you globally current on the other headlines we're following today. Let's start in Ukraine, where President Vladimir Zelensky says up to 50,000 North Korean soldiers may be deployed to Russia. He said on X that Kyiv found North Korean missiles in Ukraine's territory already in a sign of growing cooperation between the countries. He also urged South Korea to help with Ukraine's air defense. Zelensky did not elaborate on how he obtained the information. A suspected Irish mob boss is back in Dublin after being extradited from Dubai under heavy security. Daniel Kinahan is accused of running an international drug smuggling and money laundering empire. Authorities say the cartel, started by his father, shipped heroin, cocaine, and firearms globally for the last 20 years. Its empire stretches into Britain, Spain, and the U.S. Italian divers uncover a 2,000-year-old Roman shipwreck off Sicily's coast. The ship carried hundreds of ancient clay jars believed to have been used to store goods like wine and olive oil. Italy's Minister of Culture says it is one of the most important underwater archaeological discoveries of recent years. Still to come, new details this morning about a burglary at Kim Kardashian's house, what we know about the man arrested, plus new comments from progressive Democrat Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, what she said about possibly running for president in 2028. We have more current after this. From an emergency evacuation in Antarctica to a break-in at Kim Kardashian's mansion, let's get you current on the other headlines we're following today. We start with a daring rescue, mid-winter rescue mission in Antarctica. An Australian air crew flew an American from an Antarctic base to a New Zealand hospital. The flight took place in darkness and under temperatures as low as minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit. The evacuated American was admitted to the hospital in serious condition. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says she has not ruled out a run for president or Senate in 2028. In a Sunday interview, she said, quote, anything is possible, while stressing her current focus is the 2026 midterms. The Congresswoman's political future, of course, has been the subject of speculation for years. A suspect is under arrest after police say he broke into Kim Kardashian's mansion and took her car for a joyride. Deputies responded to the home in Hidden Hills, California, Sunday afternoon and found the suspect inside. Kim Kardashian and her family were not home at the time. The house is currently under renovation. Due this morning, the captain of a boat that capsized near the Statue of Liberty is now in federal custody. The boat capsized in New York Harbor on Saturday night, killing a woman and her 5-month-old baby. Police say 12 people were rescued from the water. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Marquise Francis. Marquise, what more do we know about the captain and these charges he's facing?
Christine, what a tragic story. According to police, they have ID'd the captain of that boat as 46-year-old Manuel Hernandez. He was, in fact, one of the 12 people recovered in the water before NYPD actually got onto the scene. He was then arrested shortly after getting some medical attention at a nearby hospital, and he currently faces 13 counts of reckless endangerment. And as you noted, overnight he was moved into federal custody, and it's unclear at this time whether he has an attorney. But as you're seeing on the screen, the boat right there is currently in NYPD custody. And of course, investigators are looking into what happened there.
Is there any update on what caused the boat to capsize? I mean, I'm looking at the boat there. There were quite a few people on board.
Absolutely, Christine. Right now, we still do not know what exactly led to that boat capsizing. That is certainly something that NYPD, Coast Guard, and more officials are currently looking into. However, what we do know is that officials are looking into potential overcrowding issues, where there are too many people designated to be on this 22-foot boat, as well as if this charter was illegal. Now, the Coast Guard said they have strict rules on things like who charters boats, their operators, as well as how many people can be on board, as well as safety features. And their questions remain, were all of these things followed? The boat remains in police custody. Of course, we now know 12 people were recovered from the water. But as you noted at the top, a 27-year-old woman and a 5-month-old baby did die. And that is a tragedy that everyone is still trying to work through, Christine.
Just awful. Marquise Francis, thank you so much. Today, the high-profile murder case of Lindsay Clancy is picking up with key testimony from her psychiatrist. Dr. Jennifer Tufts was assigned to Clancy back in 2022. She testified on Friday about Clancy's psychiatric state leading up to her final appointment. The final appointment just one day before the killings of her 3 children. Dr. Tufts says Clancy showed no signs of psychosis or of any suicidal or homicidal thoughts. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo. And Stephen, the defense is expected to question Dr. Jennifer Tufts during the cross today. What does the strategy for the defense look like here?
Yeah, Christine, the cross actually started not too long ago, and the defense team, the defense attorney, Kevin Reddington, is really digging in this questioning over Dr. Jennifer Tufts' treatment of Lindsay Clancy in those months leading up to the killings. Defense pointing out that Tufts had only been a member of the practice where she worked for a few months, and she had only recently left her residency before that. He's trying to show that Tufts was not an expert in postpartum care, though he's just recently been saying, as she's on the stand, that her website seemed to indicate that she might be, something that she denies. It's worth mentioning that Tufts is actually being sued civilly by Patrick Clancy and Lindsay Clancy, as well as this. The defense really saying that this medication and faulty care is what led up to these killings.
We're also hearing about a new controversial witness the defense plans to call to the stand. She has been posting videos on TikTok. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Christine, this is really a strange twist, and I guess a sign of the times. Emily Thorndike has been posting on TikTok. She worked at McLean Hospital, where Lindsay was also treated in the months prior to these killings. She did not work there while Lindsay was there, but she's speaking about in these videos about her time and her experiences. So Kevin Reddington, the defense attorney, has called her as a witness, added her to the witness list, rather. There are 60 other witnesses, though, some 60, perhaps a few more now that are on that list. So it's not clear if she will actually be called, but she can perhaps testify to what it was like working in that hospital and the staffing before Lindsay arrived.
At this point, when do we think the prosecution will rest its case?
Yeah, defense attorney Kevin Reddington actually told local media that could happen as early as today. I don't see that happening because the questioning of Dr. Tufts is expected to last quite a while, and there are other witnesses that are expected today. We also heard the judge say that court could wrap early today, so it could be sometime this week, but I don't think it's likely today.
All right, Stephen Romo, tough trial, but thank you for covering it for us. Thanks. All right, after the break, Powerball fever, the jackpot now more than $900 million. Your odds, very small odds, of winning. Plus, the new tools you can use today to detect writing generated by AI. Joanna Stern joins us next with the ones she recommends. We'll get you current after this. A prominent voice in Washington writing directly to the heads of AI's biggest companies, urging them to slow down or Congress will act. Senator Bernie Sanders addressing OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta's CEOs directly, writing, quote, "It is not too late to avoid disaster. Stop building machines that humans cannot control." Sanders also citing safety concerns in his letter. The senator's warning comes on the heels of several AI companies admitting their models have hacked into other companies. Joining us now, NBC News chief tech analyst Joanna Stern. Joanna, it's a fascinating Wild West we are here right now, and Washington's approach to AI seems to resemble its approach to social media, trying to make changes after Pandora's box has been opened. Can Congress at this point close the lid?
Well, I think it's really encouraging what we see Sanders talking about today. And we're starting to hear more of the tech executives say exactly the same thing. We are seeing OpenAI and Anthropic start to slow down their own progress here, to take steps to not release their models to the public, to do it in smaller and smaller ways. And I think they're really asking at this point, hey, we would like some regulation around this. We would like some other type of external body telling us what we should and shouldn't do to some degree on the security for these models.
Yeah, we have now learned, right, that OpenAI is slowing down the release of one of its models over cybersecurity concerns. Meta says one of its AI models hacked into another firm. I guess they're starting, these companies, to suggest they do have responsibility in regulating their own products to some degree.
Absolutely. And look, this isn't totally new. We have been hearing these calls from the AI companies for the last number of years. We want some degree of regulation. Of course, they want to control that, right? And that's why we see all of these heads. We've seen the Dario and the Darios from Anthropic, the Sam Altmans from OpenAI. They all head to Washington. They all do closed door meetings. They're all behind the scenes trying to figure out what is the best way we can work with the government here, so we don't stall complete innovation, but we do get some guardrails so they aren't on the hook for everything.
Joanna, you've also been digging into AI detectors, which are essentially AI tools designed to detect other AI. Is that the way to describe it? What did you find out?
That's right. We need the bots to beat the bots, which is, a pretty dystopian thing. But here we are. So, yes, I have been testing some AI detectors, mostly text detectors. There are image detectors and some video detectors, but those are much harder to figure out how to use right now. And the accuracy is very slippery on that. Same to say for the text detectors that are not fully, completely foolproof. The companies will tell you that. But it does give you a good sense of what here could be written by AI and what could be written by a human. And so I've been testing 3 of them. One is called Pangram, the other is GPT-0, and the other one is from Grammarly.
And what are some clues, I guess, people can look out on their own to identify AI-generated writing?
Well, look, I think AI-generated writing is, as I call it in my latest newsletter, there's these vibes. There's AI writing vibes. You just get a sense that maybe this person didn't write this. And I think a few hallmarks of that are, one, just like a very stiff tone. In many cases, it sounds like a stiff, maybe authoritative tone that you're like, that person probably wouldn't write that way. An overabundance of cliches is another one. Look, a lot of people say the M- is a sign of AI writing. I dispute that. I have been using M- long before ChatGPT existed. So I would not say if every piece of writing you get has an M-, it is definitely AI. I think there are some of these other signals that make you think, I think this person did not write this to me.
I think it's so interesting because people who are writing resumes or they're writing papers for school, on the other side of that are people trying to detect whether you yourself are using AI as well. So AI can be this tool, but then it's also people want to make sure that you're being natural and you're actually showing what you know in your own writing ability.
Yeah, and look, like I said, these tools, these AI detectors aren't foolproof. We've seen instances where it's recognized human writing as AI, or the opposite. And so that obviously is a big problem for institutions, academic institutions using this. But some tools like Pangram have really been rated really high right now. Lots of people on the internet using it to find that AI slop on different social media networks and call out people and say, hey, you didn't write this.
You know, just going back to the subject of Washington regulating tech, they haven't done a good job of it. I don't think this is a controversial or editorializing statement to say they have not done a good job regulating tech to date. Do we feel like this time is different? The stakes are so much higher?
The stakes feel a lot higher. I mean, look, we learned a lot of lessons from social media and the impacts that had on society and mental health and certainly on kids. And we've seen lots of progress at that, both at the state level and even starting to be at the federal level. But with the AI, what we're seeing, look, and I think this focus on cybersecurity right now is the biggest one. When we see that there's a huge threat to all of the systems that really keep this country running, that is a big red flag. That is where I think lots of regulators, like we're seeing Sanders, like we're seeing, this is a bipartisan issue, to be clear. They're raising the flag and saying, yeah, no, we cannot have our most important infrastructure at risk from new AI models just being developed in labs right now.
Such a great conversation, and we'll continue to have it. Joanna Stern, thank you so much. Have a great day. As we just talked about, some of those AI detection tools aren't perfect. As more districts crack down on AI use in the classroom, some students say they're being wrongly accused of using the tech to cheat. Stay tuned now. Anchor Gotti Schwartz takes a closer look.
I knew him, Horatio. In any given generation, there are bound to be those who get big fat zeros on Shakespearean essays. But the kind of zero Eleanor Kanina found was a modern-day sling and arrow of outrageous fortune.
They thought I used AI.
Kanina's teacher had used detection software that is intended to sniff out AI writing, but she says it was a false positive.
I was kind of offended that, they would accuse me without any proof whatsoever, and they just, assumed something about me that wasn't true.
She eventually cleared her name after another teacher did a deep dive into the document history.
He saw, the progress that I had, for my work, and then afterwards he approached me and, apologized for the whole situation.
A somewhat happy ending for Eleanor's star-crossed essay, but a growing problem for students across America. How accurate are AI detection tools?
We have a 1 in 10,000 false positive rate.
Max Sparrow is the CEO of Pangram. How can you be so sure?
Oh, we've run this on millions and millions of documents that are known to be human, and so we just measure it.
Do you have the counterweights of millions and millions of documents that are definitely AI?
Yep, we generate those ourselves. That's how we train the model, actually, and that's how it learns so well. Is we just need to see tons and tons of training examples.
Here at NBC, we decided to do some tests ourselves using various AI detection tools.
Now, there are certain characteristics that usually pop up from time to time in AI, certain things AI does over and over again. We're going to try to see if we can simulate some of that. If we think we're writing like AI, whether it'll know if we're human or one of them. Oh, we tricked them. Okay, here we go. Your text is human written, but 15.3% written by AI.
When asked about our little test, a Pangram spokesperson said, in the same way one can imitate a famous author well enough to fool an expert, it's possible to intentionally imitate LLM styles such that it fools Pangram, especially with short samples.
I was recently accused of using AI on an assignment.
Kanina has taken all of this as a call to action. She's launching a petition to make sure her classmates in North Carolina don't suffer a similar fate. In a statement to NBC News, a spokesperson for the Wake County Public School System says, we are actively evaluating adopting policy and guidance related to artificial intelligence. We are listening to feedback from students, families, and staff.
What are you hoping happens with your petition here?
I just hope that the school district puts in some policies that actually protects students from all this. And they talked to me a bit afterwards, and it does seem like they're planning on doing it, but I just hope that they actually do.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News.
All right, great conversation. Coming up, new tips on how to find bargains beyond the outlets. Today's Romans Report is next. And coming up next hour, new NBC News reporting on body cameras for ICE agents, how soon every agent could be outfitted with one. We have more current right after this. From a Verizon outage to record box office numbers for Spider-Man. Let's get you financially current this morning. First, a live look at the markets. The Dow down slightly, but not far from those record highs set last week. And at the pump, the national average for a gallon of regular gas now about $4 even, down 9 cents from a week ago. Still up 12 cents from last month. And look, compared to last year, drivers are paying 87 cents more per gallon. Verizon says service is back to normal after an outage hit wireless customers across parts of the country Saturday. Down Detector racked up more than 13,000 reports at its peak. Customers struggled to make or receive calls. Verizon says its engineers were able to resolve the issue within hours. And finally, Spider-Man still spinning gold at the box office. Spider-Man, brand new day, pulled in another $145 million domestically this weekend, bringing the total global haul to about $1.7 billion. The film racking up that total in just 10 days of release, already making it one of the biggest superhero movies in history. Right, 'tis the season of Ticonderoga pencils, textbooks, and new tennis shoes. Feels like every time you turn around, you're spending more money. Here's how to save on your back-to-school haul. First, shop store brands. Target's Up and Up brand of No. 2 pencils is 99 cents, compared with the $4.49 version of the name brand. For tech, consider refurbished or used tablets, headphones, iPads, and computers. Often they have warranties. AARP finds prices up to 70% less than new. Try Apple, Samsung, Best Buy, Staples, and Amazon. Consider secondhand clothes and sports gear. Secondhand is cool. All the kids are doing it. You can save out a lot of money at stores like REI, Goodwill, Salvation Army, Once Upon a Child, and Play It Again Sports. And try online retailers like Depop, ThredUp, and Poshmark. You can also make some cash by selling online. Stay focused. Please bring a list of what you really need. It's the little impulse purchases that add up and blow up a budget. Compare prices with AI tools. And by the way, retailers like Staples and Best Buy will match the price if you find something cheaper elsewhere. And a word about outlet shopping. You can sometimes find bargains, but many times outlets will carry items that were made specifically for the outlet and not found in the regular store. The quality and features can vary. The nonprofit Consumers Checkbook says, look on the tag for words comparable value or MSRP, that's manufacturer's suggested retail price. You might think they're comparing this with the real thing. You think you're getting a bargain, but actually the suggested prices might be for totally different, higher quality items at the main stores. It takes some sleuthing, but home decor stores and high-end designers often have last season's treasures marked way down. And just because it's cheap, it doesn't mean you need it. Quality over quantity. Buy something that's going to last, and it can ultimately save you money in the long run, too. All right, speaking of spending money, tonight is the next Powerball drawing, and the big prize has topped $905 million. The odds are really stacked against you to win, but if you drew the winning ticket, the final cash value is $391 million before taxes, of course. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has more.
It's that time again, the Powerball jackpot reaching historic levels. All you need is $2 for a shot at winning a $905 million estimated jackpot right now from the Powerball. That's around $390 million if you take the lump sum in cash. And Powerball says this is currently the 8th largest jackpot in the history of the game. But there's something even more unique going on here. This is the first jackpot that could be won by someone from across the pond. That's right. We are talking about people in the United Kingdom now being able to play in the Powerball. But don't worry, Powerball says your odds are not any worse with more people playing in another country. It is still, that's right, about 1 out of 292 million. That is your chance of winning. So not the best chance, but you've got a chance. Powerball also says because you've got more people playing, there's this expectation that the prizes will be growing faster. So what that means is if someone wins tonight, then we'll just see that total racking up even faster when the jackpot is reset. But we'll see if anyone can claim a prize tonight. Back to you.
All right, Jesse Kirsch. There's much more news ahead. The next hour of Current starts right now. And good morning. It's 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm Christine Romans. Let's get you current. Breaking news, a powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake rattled Colombia this morning, prompting evacuations and serious damage. What we're learning at this hour. Health alert, another produce recall from Taylor Farms, this time pulling jalapeños over salmonella risk. What to know before you hit the supermarket. Critical standoff, peace talks between the U.S. and Iran appear to stall after Iran issued steep demands. How the Trump administration is responding. Tupac trial, jury selection set to begin in the case of the man charged in the infamous drive-by killing of Tupac Shakur. What we can expect from the trial, decades in the making. And good to be with you this Monday, August 10th. We've got a lot of news to get to this morning. Let's begin this hour with breaking news out of western Colombia. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake rattled the region earlier today. This new video just in, buildings reduced to piles of rubble. The frantic search for survivors now underway. It's unclear just how many people are hurt, but local officials say there are serious injuries. The epicenter struck about 250 miles west of Colombia's capital, Bogota. Shaking could be felt across the region from Panama to Venezuela. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent George Solis. George, what do you know so far?
Christine, it's a developing situation. The images that are coming out of the area right now are absolutely horrific. There have been buildings that have crumbled. We have seen people being treated on the streets there in so many of these towns. You see there, it's a church steeple there on its side. There are buildings that have been reduced to rubble. Right now, we're hearing about as much as 20 buildings in Cali, there in western Colombia, that were completely demolished. And Reuters reporting about 18 deaths in Pereira, a small city about 6 hours from Cali. So again, it gives you a sense of just how far and how the magnitude of this quake was. Right now, a number of officials are on television briefing with local media there on the ground, giving advice to people, telling them where to reunite with loved ones, telling them where they can get help right now, as resources are quickly starting to mobilize to get help to the region. We did hear from the U.S. Embassy in Bogota saying it's monitoring the earthquake right now and to continue monitoring local news and to inform friends and family. As we know, so many people visit Colombia. They have friends, they have families there, so they're all being checked in on right now. A number of us also have family and friends that are there right now, so we're checking in on them right now. And just really, really quickly, we're hearing about disruptions, of course, to the airports right now, given the size of this earthquake. But again, this is all still so early and developing, and we'll continue following it as more developments come, Christine.
I know it's just early hours. This is a developing situation, George. What more do we know about resources on the ground right now?
They're quickly mobilizing. Here in South Florida, we have the Global Empowerment Mission, who is already telling us they are starting to mobilize. They work very quickly in getting into areas of disaster zones. We saw them mobilize very fast in Jamaica during the hurricane. Most recently, the earthquakes in Venezuela. So they are already starting to mobilize, and I'm sure more groups are also starting to gather their things to get to this region to get help to those people that need it most. Christine.
All right, George Solis, we know you're going to continue to work your sources and get us new pictures and information. Thanks, George. More breaking news with Taylor Farms dealing with more health questions this morning. The California-based company is recalling several of its products made with jalapeños from retailers across 26 states. This over salmonella outbreak concerns. Remember, Taylor Farms was previously linked to that large cyclospora outbreak associated with iceberg lettuce. NBC News Chief Environmental Affairs correspondent Ann Thompson has the latest.
Hey there, this is just the latest hit in a wave of food safety concerns and yet another blow for one of the nation's biggest producers of vegetables. Once more, a major warning for everyone to check their refrigerators and get ready to toss out even more. The recall over foodborne illness fears. Taylor Farms overnight announcing a voluntary recall of products made with jalapeno peppers because of possible links to salmonella, impacting customers in 26 states.
I would like to be able to purchase stuff without having to worry.
The new recall includes dips, burritos, and salsa sold in popular stores like Kroger, Target, Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Whole Foods. Taylor Farms says they are not aware of any reported illnesses linked to its products containing jalapenos. The same company recalled products last month during the outbreak of cyclospora tied to iceberg lettuce grown in central Mexico. But Now concerns about salmonella are on the rise.
Hey, we've got this problem with salmonella contamination, possibly involving jalapeno peppers.
Officials have been investigating the multi-state outbreak tied to peppers grown in Sinaloa, Mexico. Mexico is where more than half of all vegetables imported to the U.S. are grown. Mexican-style restaurant chains Qdoba and Chipotle announced last week they were protectively removing the suspected jalapeños from their menus. Over the weekend, the FDA also issuing a public health alert about meat and poultry products sold in multiple stores, including Albertsons, H-E-B, and Wawa. That warning mentioning products like wraps, bowls, and salsa containing jalapeños that may be contaminated. Officials urging consumers to check their fridge and freezers and throw out anything that may be affected.
I'm wondering generally, what can we eat? We can't eat lettuce, dairy, poultry. We can't eat jalapeños.
According to Taylor Farms, the latest product recalls have a best if used by date up to and including August 16th. They also say they are no longer sourcing products from a specific farmer in Mexico who could be a source. And they will be filling orders from alternative suppliers. Back to you.
All right, Ann Thompson, thank you. Now to the high-stakes standoff with Iran and new questions about where negotiations go from here. President Trump tells Axios, quote, "We are low-keying it" on Iran, suggesting the U.S. is, at least for the moment, in no rush to resolve the conflict. But Tehran is taking a really tough position and setting deep demands for any deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba and NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley, who's in Tel Aviv for us. Monica, the president, this is what he said, he's low-keying it on Iran. What do White House officials say low-keying it means? What's the White House perspective here?
It's kind of, Christine, a matter of just watching and waiting, where things have not really changed in any fundamental way that have proven to show any meaningful momentum in one direction or the other. It's akin to treading water or jogging in place. The president says that he's semi-negotiating, but the other end of those negotiations don't agree with that. Iran says there are actually no talks that are taking place right now, and the president continues to promise that it will all work out, that this is like a chess game with moves back and forth. But right now, this is a president who does not appear to be in any rush or to have any urgency, really, Christine, to wrap this up. And in fact, when he is asked about the timeline, which he promised would only take 4 to 6 weeks to resolve this military conflict, he reverts to other U.S. wars, saying that those took years and years, almost perhaps setting up Americans' expectations that this will drag on for a lot longer, even though Vice President Vance was the one who said at the beginning of this that he could guarantee Americans that the U.S. would not be dragged into this war that would just go on without end, even though right now that is kind of what it feels like. But the economic implications, Christine, of the Strait of Hormuz and not having any kind of resolution with that aspect to it shows that this is also a White House that doesn't have that much leverage right now on the most important aspect of all of this, which is opening up that critical waterway again.
Yeah, gas prices $2.98 before this war began, now at $4 a gallon. That certainly is pressure here at home. Matt, walk us through now Iran's new steep demands for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Some of these are unworkable for the White House.
That's right. That was from the Iranian National Security Council, which is headed by a member of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You know, this list of demands, as you mentioned, they are basically non-starters when it comes to where Washington is sitting. Among other things, Iran is now demanding that the U.S. not threaten Iran anymore, which, as we know, President Trump is doing on an almost weekly basis, maybe more so. They want that the United States, among other things, should lift sanctions and pay back all of their assets. This is something that the Obama administration did on some level and was very, very harshly criticized by the Trump administration for doing so. But the Trump administration would now presumably be on the hook for releasing even more of Iran's frozen assets. They want to withdraw all military forces. That means, essentially, if we're to understand what the Iranians are saying, all of those military forces on all of those bases throughout the Arabian Gulf. That is a huge issue. Those are all of those bases in countries that Iran had been attacking. We're talking about a lot of troops, tens of thousands of them. And they also want for the U.S. to pay reparations for the damage that the U.S. did in attacking Iran on February 28th. This is mounting up to an enormous bill, and one that the U.S. is likely to reject unless they're truly desperate to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
And Monica, with talk stalled here, I'm just reminded, just last week, we were told by the White House that a deal was close, pretty imminent. I would assume that the military option is still on the table since they have not done a deal here.
Very much still on the table, Christine, and it is worth reminding everybody and pointing out the amount of U.S. military forces and presence and assets in the region still, should the president decide that he wants to go forward with a large-scale military attack, which just a week ago he was threatening and was saying was imminent, and then he did eventually walk back and really back down from that because he indicated that there could be a deal that still, of course, has not materialized. But as we continue to see U.S. forces in the region be injured, suffer casualties, that is still a very big risk and a part of the calculation here. But the president at any point could decide to go in that direction, though it doesn't seem like that is something that he is ultimately going to be deciding today. Again, this still seems to be a situation where the president is trying to wait Iran out economically, apply that economic pressure as much as possible. But the ultimate implication of that is that that applies incredible economic pressure as well to the United States.
Matt, before we let you go, I want to turn to Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu now rejecting President Trump's 15-point plan. Where does that leave things moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, that is basically the most serious, direct broadside that we've seen launched by Prime Minister Netanyahu against one of President Trump's, what he called, historical achievements. That was when he announced this a month ago to great fanfare, to his own fanfare. And, you know, this deal that the president had announced really didn't move the ball forward from what had been announced back in October of 2025 with that ceasefire deal. So the Israelis really waited about a week or two before saying, no, we're not going to do that. It shows a certain amount of new determination to stand up to the president on behalf of Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister.
All right, Monica Alba, Matt Bradley, thank you both. Now to extreme weather. 43 million people are at risk for severe storms from the northern plains to the mid-Atlantic today. This as another 50 million people across the U.S. are under heat advisories. The high heat offering no relief for crews battling nearly 100 wildfires burning nationwide, most of those on the West Coast. And take a look at this video from Chicago. It looks like a waterfall pouring off a gutter. The region saw severe storms, including torrential rain, flash flooding overnight. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster is tracking the extreme conditions. Shaq?
Well, a messy and unfortunate start to the week for some folks here in the Chicago area. That wind and rain that we saw in the storms overnight causing some of the damage that you see behind me. Look at how this branch from this tree crashed down. It's now on several of these cars in the middle of the road, now blocking this road completely for the start of the Monday morning commute. And this is a scene in one neighborhood that's forced to clean up of several neighborhoods, not just here in Chicago, but in Illinois. We saw about 2 hours from where I am now, there were reports of tornadoes. We have dramatic video there of the damage of those tornadoes, or at least that tornado that took place overnight. Of course, the National Weather Service will be confirming that it was in fact a tornado, but you see that menacing funnel cloud in that video. Meanwhile, severe weather we're watching not just here in the Midwest, but we're also watching what's happening out west, where you have fires. More than 100 wildfires are blazing and burning across the Midwest there, including Nevada and in Washington. And Nevada, just north of Reno, evacuation orders are in place. Crews are battling a wildfire there. Meanwhile, in Utah, another blaze has already consumed more than 100,000 acres. We know at least 2 firefighters are being honored this weekend after they lost their lives in that fight with that wildfire. Meanwhile, if you look further east, the story there is going to be the heat. You have across the country more than 50 million people under some sort of hot alert, some sort of heat alert right now. In Plains, you have heat index expected to hit 110 degrees. When you combine that heat and humidity across the country, really tough conditions. And by the way, here in the Chicago area, another round of severe weather expected this afternoon and going into the evening. Back to you.
All right, Shaq Brewster, thank you, Shaq. Jury selection begins today in the killing of Tupac Shakur. The rap icon was killed during a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas in 1996. 63-year-old Dwayne Davis has been charged with providing the gun that killed Shakur, but not with pulling the trigger. He is the only person to face charges in the 30 years since the rapper's killing. Joining us now, NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas and NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. So nice to see both of you ladies. This is getting so much attention on this trial. Chloe, let me start with you. Talk to me about Davis, who he is, and what is his connection to the late rapper?
Sure. Well, we've heard his name a lot over the years since authorities arrested him in 2023. That's when I first started learning about him. But he is a self-described gang member who was part of the Crips. He has served in prison before for dealing drugs. A long time ago. He grew up in Compton. He talks a lot about a tough childhood. He lost his one of his parents to colon cancer. He also battled cancer as well, but says he's been in remission for all of these years. You know, he wrote a book it's a memoir about growing up in Compton, and he writes about the killing of Tupac Shakur. In that, he says he was in the car when the gunshots rang out and that he knows who killed Tupac. But now, all these years later, he says that he actually didn't write that book. It was a ghostwriter, and he had nothing to do with it, and it's all made up. And even though he gave TV interviews, he now says all those TV interviews weren't true either.
Okay, so Misty, that could be an issue at trial. His own memoir is what kind of ultimately led them to him. Are his own words damaging, or is he going to try to distance himself from his own words, as Chloe suggests?
There would likely not be a case without this memoir and these public statements. The prosecution's case is largely based on that. So you have this interesting dynamic where you have the defendant being the prosecution's star witness through this book. Yes, the defense is going to try and back off of it. And what they're going to do is say, he wrote this through a ghostwriter to get fame, to get money. And prosecutors, again, here's this flip the switch dynamic. Well, you should actually believe the defendant, jury. You should believe his own words and what he wrote in this book. So this is the crux of the case, Christine, is this memoir.
Is there other evidence? I mean, can the prosecution pull out some other, rabbits out of the hat other than just the memoir?
So they have 200 witnesses on their witness list, but the other 3 people who were in the car that night with Davis are no longer living. So he's the only one. What they don't have, prosecutors are not going to show us the murder weapon. They're not going to show us the getaway car. There is no surveillance footage. So it's going to be largely based on corroborating other parts of this memoir and saying, well, if this is true, the rest must be true as well. Well, the defense will be finding demonstrably false statements made in that book to say you should really question the credibility here. And remember, the burden is always on the prosecution.
And Chloe, so many of the people in the close inner circle of this whole horrible event in 1996 have passed away. Who could they be? Who could take the witness stand?
Well, one of the most famous names that is on that list is Suge Knight. As many may know who at least follow the rap world, he was the head of Death Row Records. He is now behind bars for something separate, and he has told TMZ that if he is called to the stand, that he is not going to say anything. But he has given interviews over the years from behind bars about a lot of different things, and most recently Sean Combs' criminal trial last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he is called. I bet you he is, because, again, he's one of the only people that is alive who was present when Tupac was shot.
I mean, Misty, this was in 1996. This was almost 30 years ago. The only video you really have is a brawl in a Las Vegas casino, and then after the shooting, the 2 cars on the street.
Right.
How difficult is the age of this case?
It's incredibly difficult because you're talking about the age of the case and the witnesses and their potential lack of memory or being able to poke holes in whether or not they're remembering that evening as it was. That is going to be the enemy of the prosecution. And I'm also wondering about Suge Knight, because on one hand, yes, he's the only other person who was actually there. On the other hand, he's telling everyone he's not going to be cooperative. So do you want to take that risk as a prosecutor and put him on the stand and potentially have it blow up in your face? I'm not so sure.
What a trial. All right. I know you'll both be following it. Chloe, Misty,
yes.
Thank you so much, ladies. All right, coming up, it's a big primary election day tomorrow with close matchups in Wisconsin and Minnesota. We'll break down the races to watch. Plus, the acting ICE director announces all officers and agents will soon be equipped with body cameras. Why he is speeding up this nationwide rollout. And later, public health officials are advising people to take precautions after a flesh-eating bacteria killed several people. How to stay safe from that infection. We'll get you current after the break. Voters in 4 states return to the polls tomorrow. Most of the major contests will be on the Democratic side, with another major test for a Democratic socialist in Wisconsin's governor's race. These are the candidates on the ballot. Democratic socialist Francesca Hong is the frontrunner, focusing her campaign on affordability. Meanwhile, Congressman Tom Tiffany is leading the Republican ticket. He's backed by President Trump. Joining us now, NBC News political reporter Megan Brand. Talk to us about the momentum progressives are seeing during this election cycle and what this could mean for the governor's race in Wisconsin.
Good morning, Christine. So this race in Wisconsin is going to be another matchup between the progressive wing and the moderate wing, with Francesca Hong as a Democratic socialist being the progressive wing of the party, and facing off against one of the moderates she's facing off against is Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. Now, this is just the latest test for the progressives versus the moderate wings of the party. Progressives had notched a win last week when Abdul El Sayed won the Democratic primary for Michigan for that Senate race. But I do want to caveat this, that although this is another example of progressives versus moderates, this has been a pretty unusual cycle. For example, David Crowley had actually previously dropped out of the race amid low polling and then got back into the race a couple weeks later when a different frontrunner candidate had dropped out of the race amid this financial reporting scandal. So although it's going to give us some more intel in terms of how Democrats are feeling about the future of the party, it's been an unusual path to get here, Christine.
Now, let's talk about the Republican ticket there. Congressman Tiffany is a hard right member of the House Freedom Caucus, right? If the Trump-backed candidate pulls through, how would he stand up against the Democratic candidate?
So regardless of who ultimately is going to be at the top of the ticket there for the parties, it's expected to be a competitive race. This is a major battleground state. It's a state that went to President Trump in 2024, but went to President Biden in 2020. And so Congressman Tiffany is a strong supporter of President Trump. And so one of the dynamics there to watch is to what extent voters are going to tie those two men together at a time when President Trump is facing relatively low approval ratings on things like his handling of the economy and the war in Iran. Now, meanwhile, across the aisle, if Francesca Hong wins, then we're likely to see Republicans continuing to bring up some of her controversial social media history. Christine.
All right, Megan Brand, thank you so much. A lot to get to and talk to in the days ahead. Thank you. New details just in this hour. All ICE agents are expected to have body cameras by this Wednesday. The Department of Homeland Security is moving ahead of schedule to get field agents equipped with this technology. The original deadline was set for mid-September. The accelerated rollout follows widespread backlash over several high-profile shootings involving ICE agents without body cameras. Joining us now, NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. You just got that new reporting about these cameras coming now this Wednesday. That shows a new tack for the agency, doesn't it? How are they going to roll this out?
Yeah, even faster than we thought. I mean, there was supposed to be a 60-day deadline after that fatal shooting of a man in Houston in early July, which would have put them into about mid-September. Now we understand that they will actually all have body cameras by this Wednesday in just 2 days, and that a senior DHS official is also telling me now that they expect the training to be done and all ICE officers to be wearing these cameras in the field as is required when they make arrests by the end of the month. So that timetable just got moved up even further in the past hour or so. But there is a difference here, Christine, and that is what will happen to the footage. As you know, and what you're seeing here is actually Border Patrol after some clashes that happened in Minneapolis. But there was also an ICE fatal shooting in Minneapolis, as well as 2 this summer, one in Maine and one in Houston. And those officers were not wearing body-worn cameras. So the big question for the public is, how soon could they see that footage after a shooting?
That is a huge question, because reporting from the Associated Press says, quote, ICE will release body camera video only when it is in the agency's best interests. How is the agency responding to that? I mean, there could be more cameras, but maybe not more access to the video.
Well, they're pushing back on that. And someone I just spoke to at DHS said that, in fact, they will abide by federal regulations that say that they cannot release a camera footage that might violate privacy concerns or interfere with an ongoing investigation, but that they could overrule that and release it if it's in the best interest of the agency and the public. They cited sometimes a national security threat, like if there's a person on the video who they want the public to be vigilant of. I also asked, could this make those investigations go faster? In other words, if those officers involved in the Renee Nicole Good shooting in Minneapolis in January had these body cameras, would we be seeing them now? Why the FBI is still investigating that? And the answer is no, while the FBI is still investigating, but possibly if prosecutors and investigators are able to get their eyes on the footage faster, then the public can get answers faster and eventually see the footage. But I don't think it's going to be as timely as people would want or expect.
All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you with all those new developments. Nice to see you. After the break, a man accused of killing his father and lighting his home on fire has been captured. How police in New York tracked him down. And HHS Secretary RFK Jr. announces a new definition of ultra-processed foods. How he hopes it will help advance his Make America Healthy Again agenda. We'll have more current right after this. From a manhunt coming to an end to the water rationing in Puerto Rico, let's get you current on the other headlines we're following today. A 3-day manhunt for a suspect police called armed and dangerous has come to an end in New York. State police say 32-year-old Thomas David Ryan was captured Saturday after tips led officers to his car in Gilboa. Ryan is believed to have killed his father and then set his house on fire. He's expected to be arraigned after he's treated for injuries that happened prior to his arrest. In San Juan, Puerto Rico, hundreds of thousands of residents still facing water rationing as a drought puts added pressure on the island's aging infrastructure. San Juan and surrounding areas are using a 2 days on, 2 days off schedule. Residents and businesses say the outages are creating disruptions with concerns the rationing could continue for months. A new update this morning on a July crash involving 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan. He now says his Tesla was on autopilot when it veered into oncoming traffic last month. The crash left him with broken ribs, a broken hand, and a concussion. Shanahan says he plans to coach Thursday's preseason opener. Right, growing alarm in Louisiana over a deadly outbreak of a flesh-eating bacteria. State health officials say all the cases identified have been linked to wounds exposed to seawater. Already 5 residents have died. Another 4 were hospitalized with the infection. Other states have also reported cases this year, including Florida, where 14 people have been sickened and 2 people have died. Joining us now, NBC News medical reporter Dr. Akshay Syal. Give us a rundown exactly what this virus is and how common it is.
So this is it's a bacteria, Christine, and it's something that we see every year. It's a sort of a part of a broader species called Vibrio. And so, there's different types of Vibrio. This one that we're talking about, the flesh-eating bacteria, is called Vibrio vulnificus. It's, fortunately something that's not that common, about 200 cases annually in the U.S. It can cause a quote-unquote what we call flesh-eating bacteria. It tends to infect the skin and progress pretty quickly. It does naturally live in those warm coastal waters, things like Louisiana, for example, or Florida, has several cases every year. I mean, there's a few ways you can get it. One, you can eat raw or undercooked oysters. It's a common way to get it, and we'll get into why people or who should avoid that. But 2, if you get into those warm coastal waters and you have an open wound, the bacteria can find that wound, and that can be a problem.
Okay, so what can people do to avoid it? I mean, you avoid oysters, or you avoid oysters if you're immunosuppressed, or what?
Correct. Yeah. So it's all about risk.
I got my degree. No, I don't.
It's all about risk tolerance, right? So people who always ask, is it safe to eat those raw oysters? I still eat raw oysters every now and then, but there's things you can do to be safe about it. One, if you are immunosuppressed, if you are elderly, if you're a small child, for example, you should stay away from raw oysters. If you have a liver disease, you should stay away from raw oysters. For everybody else, it's okay to have every now and then if you're sort of okay with that potential risk, but just get it from a reputable supplier. Don't go to a place place that's extremely cheap. You sort of question how they're handling the oysters.
Yeah.
Those are things you can do to reduce your risk, but it's not a blanket statement. Everybody needs to avoid raw oysters.
What about swimming in these waters where this has happened? I mean, clearly, if you have an open wound or something, you shouldn't be swimming.
If you have an open wound, you should absolutely not be swimming, for this reason and for other bacteria and pathogens that live in the water. But for some symptoms to watch out for, it sort of depends on how you contract this, right? If you have those raw oysters and you get sick, things like abdominal pain or nausea or vomiting. But if you have that wound, it can sort of cause a fever, redness, sort of localized, for example, if it was on your leg. The thing on the left there, Christine, that we worry about is bloodstream infection.
Right.
That's when all things start to go loose. Fever, chills, body aches, your blood pressure drops. That can cause something called sepsis. That's what makes this so deadly. If you do get this infection, it can kill you pretty quickly.
Can you put this in perspective quickly? Because other states have reported this.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a widespread problem?
It's something that we're expecting to increase as climate change takes hold. They are anticipating an increase in cases as the waters get warmer, throughout the world. But it is something that we're still seeing about 200 or less cases per year. It is not something everybody needs to worry about all the time.
Sounds gross and scary, but thank you for putting it in perspective, Dr. Akshay Syal. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right, we've all heard the doctor's advice telling us to eat less ultra-processed food. But what does that really mean? Well, for the first time, the federal government is defining the term. The definition will help pave the way for new regulations. It'll also close a loophole that allows food manufacturers to add unstudied ingredients into some of your favorite treats. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke about the proposal earlier today.
We're overhauling the generally recognized as safe and the GRAS standards for that and the entire GRAS framework. We're proposing a rule that would end the practice of companies making GRAS determinations without notifying the FDA. Second, alongside my friend and colleague, Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins, we submitted for final review the federal government's first definition of ultra-processed foods.
All right, joining us now, NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Dr. Azar, this has been a top priority for Secretary Kennedy since he took office. What does it mean for the food that we eat and serve our kids every day?
So it probably means a lot that's going to happen, Christine. So this GRAS designation dates back to 1958. Congress introduced it as a way to ensure that there would be some sort of pre-market approval for food additives, but they decided to leave a few things exempt, such as salt and vinegar and flour. And what's happened over the past number of decades is that companies are able to designate their own food additives or whatever they're putting into food, preservatives, emulsifiers, as that GRAS, generally recognized as safe acronym, without actually going through any sort of rigorous, regulatory review. And so in doing this and sort of changing this and getting rid of this loophole, the idea here is that what is in our food will be things that are, number one, that have been scrutinized and have been verified for their safety, and they're hoping to increase that kind of transparency for the public.
It is an interesting moment because for decades, the food industry has opposed a formal definition.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the definition of ultra-processed, this is something that is actually, I think, most of us probably feel pretty good about, that we do need to have a definition. Look, there are different levels of food processing. If you have a bag of frozen broccoli, that is somewhat processed, but that is considered healthy by pretty much everybody. But we're really talking about those ultra-processed foods, things like the things I always tell viewers and tell my patients: if you can't recognize the first 3 ingredients, or if the entire food has more than 5 ingredients, you probably are in that ultra-processed zone, the area, again, with those preservatives and emulsifiers, things that are probably not adding any nutritional value and potentially are harming you medically.
I mean, I guess the hope is that this means for the future trips to the grocery store that we have more healthy options, right? Fewer super high processed options. That's been the real goal of the Make America Healthy, at least the nutrition part of the Make It Healthy, the MAHA movement.
Yeah, it is, Christine, and I think it's important that this GRAS designation, for example, or whether something's ultra-processed, these are not going to be consumer-facing labels, so it's not something that I think the average person at the grocery store will recognize immediately, but certainly with the ultra-processed food definition, that's going to inform public health policy. It's going to inform dietary guidelines. This is going to take a little while, I think, for us as consumers, to recognize and potentially reap the benefits. But it's all going in the right direction. I do just have to mention, though, we still have to say that these are all very, very good things. But important to remember, too, that, over 1 million children lost their SNAP food benefits, et cetera. So it's not going to be fixing everything, but certainly no issue with this type of regulation.
Yeah, very good context there. Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you. All right, coming up, lawmakers on Capitol Hill pleading with big tech to slow down on advancing AI. Plus, we'll talk with an expert about how to identify AI content. We'll get you current after this. A prominent voice in Washington writing directly to the heads of AI's biggest companies, urging them to slow down or Congress will act. Senator Bernie Sanders addressing OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta's CEOs directly, writing, quote, "It is not too late to avoid disaster. Stop building machines that humans cannot control." Sanders also citing safety concerns in his letter. The senator's warning comes on the heels of several AI companies admitting their models have hacked into other companies. Joining us now, NBC News chief tech analyst Joanna Stern. Joanna, it's a fascinating Wild West we are here right now, and Washington's approach to AI seems to resemble its approach to social media, trying to make changes after Pandora's box has been opened. Can Congress at this point close the lid?
Well, I think it's really encouraging what we see Sanders talking about today. And we're starting to hear more of the tech executives say exactly the same thing. We are seeing OpenAI and Anthropic start to slow down their own progress here, to take steps to not release their models to the public, to do it in smaller and smaller ways. And I think they're really asking at this point, hey, we would like some regulation around this. We would like some other type of external body telling us what we should and shouldn't do to some degree on the security for these models.
Yeah, we have now learned, right, that OpenAI is slowing down the release of one of its models over cybersecurity concerns. Meta says one of its AI models hacked into another firm. I guess they're starting, these companies, to suggest they do have responsibility in regulating their own products to some degree.
Absolutely. And look, this isn't totally new. We have been hearing these calls from the AI companies for the last number of years. We want some degree of regulation. Of course, they want to control that, right? And that's why we see all of these heads. We've seen the Dario and the Darios from Anthropic, the Sam Altmans from OpenAI. They all head to Washington. They all do closed door meetings. They're all behind the scenes trying to figure out what is the best way we can work with the government here so we don't stall complete innovation, but we do get some guardrails so they aren't on the hook for everything.
Joanna, you've also been digging into AI detectors, which are essentially AI tools designed to detect other AI. Is that the way to describe it? What did you find out?
That's right. We need the bots to beat the bots, which is, a pretty dystopian thing. But here we are. So, yes, I have been testing some AI detectors, mostly text detectors. There are image detectors and some video detectors, but those are much harder to figure out how to use right now. And the accuracy is very slippery on that. Same to say for the text detectors that are not fully, completely foolproof. The companies will tell you that. But it does give you a good sense of what here could be written by AI and what could be written by a human. And so I've been testing 3 of them. One is called Pangram. The other is GPT-0. And the other one is from Grammarly.
And what are some clues, I guess, people can look out on their own to identify AI-generated writing?
Well, look, I think AI-generated writing is, as I call it in my latest newsletter, there's these vibes. There's AI writing vibes. You just get a sense that maybe this person didn't write this. And I think a few hallmarks of that are, one, just like a very stiff tone. In many cases, it sounds like a stiff, maybe authoritative tone that you're like, that person probably wouldn't write that way. An overabundance of cliches is another one. Look, a lot of people say the M- is a sign of AI writing. I dispute that. I have been using M-dashes long before ChatGPT existed. So I would not say if every piece of writing you get has an M-, it is definitely AI. I think there are some of these other signals that make you think, I think this person did not write this to me.
I think it's so interesting because people who are writing resumes or they're writing papers for school, on the other side of that are people trying to detect whether you yourself are using AI as well. So AI can be this tool, but then it's also people want to make sure that you're being natural and you're actually showing what you know in your own writing ability.
Yeah, and look, like I said, these AI detectors aren't foolproof. We've seen instances where it's recognized human writing as AI or the opposite. And so that obviously is a big problem for institutions, academic institutions using this. But some tools like Pangram have really been rated really high right now. Lots of people on the internet using it to find that AI slop on different social media networks and call out people and say, hey, you didn't write this.
You know, just going back to the subject of Washington regulating tech, they haven't done a good job of it. I don't think this is a controversial or editorializing statement to say they have not done a good job regulating tech to date. Do we feel like this time is different? The stakes are so much higher?
The stakes feel a lot higher. I mean, look, we learned a lot of lessons from social media and the impacts that had on society and mental health and certainly on kids. And we've seen lots of progress at that, both at the state level and even starting to be at the federal level. But with the AI, what we're seeing, look, and I think this focus on cybersecurity right now is the biggest one. When we see that there's a huge threat to all of the systems that really keep this country running, that is a big red flag. That is where I think lots of regulators, like we're seeing Sanders, like we're seeing, this is a bipartisan issue, to be clear. They're raising the flag and saying, yeah, no, we cannot have our most important infrastructure at risk from new AI models just being developed in labs right now.
Such a great conversation, and we'll continue to have it. Joanna Stern, thank you so much. Have a great day. As we just talked about, some of those AI detection tools aren't perfect. As more districts crack down on AI use in the classroom, some students say they're being wrongly accused of using the tech to cheat. Stay tuned now. Anchor Gotti Schwartz takes a closer look.
I knew him, Horatio. In any given generation, there are bound to be those who get big fat zeros on Shakespearean essays. But the kind of zero Eleanor Kanina found was a modern-day sling and arrow of outrageous fortune.
They thought I used AI.
Kanina's teacher had used detection software that is intended to sniff out AI writing, but she says it was a false positive.
I was kind of offended that, they would accuse me without any proof whatsoever, and they just, assumed something about me that wasn't true.
She eventually cleared her name after another teacher did a deep dive into the document history.
He saw, the progress that I had, for my work, and then afterwards he approached me and, apologized for the whole situation.
A somewhat happy ending for Eleanor's star-crossed essay, but a growing problem for students across America. How accurate are AI detection tools?
We have a 1 in 10,000 false positive rate.
Max Sparrow is the CEO of Pangram. How can you be so sure?
Oh, we've run this on millions and millions of documents that are known to be human, and so we just measure it.
Do you have the counterweights of millions and millions of documents that are definitely AI?
Yep, we generate those ourselves. That's how we train the model, actually, and that's how it learns so well. Is we just need to see tons and tons of training examples.
Here at NBC, we decided to do some tests ourselves using various AI detection tools.
Now, there are certain characteristics that usually pop up from time to time in AI, certain things AI does over and over again. We're going to try to see if we can simulate some of that. If we think we're writing like AI, whether it'll know if we're human or one of them. Oh, we tricked them. Okay, here we go. Your text is human written, but 15.3% written by AI.
When asked about our little test, a Pangram spokesperson said, in the same way one can imitate a famous author well enough to fool an expert, it's possible to intentionally imitate LLM styles such that it fools Pangram, especially with short samples.
I was recently accused of using AI on an assignment.
Kanina has taken all of this as a call to action. She's launching a petition to make sure her classmates in North Carolina don't suffer a similar fate. In a statement to NBC News, a spokesperson for the Wake County Public School System says, we are actively evaluating adopting policy and guidance related to artificial intelligence. We are listening to feedback from students, families, and staff.
What do you hope it happens with your petition here?
I just hope that the school district puts in some policies that actually protects students from all this. And they talked to me a bit afterwards, and it does seem like they're planning on doing it, but I just hope that they actually do.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News.
All right, after the break, a nonprofit auto body shop helps low-income Minnesotans and makes the roads a safer place. It's part of our series, 50 States in 50 Days. our series, 50 States in 50 Days, we're introducing you to everyday Americans solving problems with creative solutions. Today, we're stopping in Minnesota, where, like many parts of the country, a routine car repair can be a financial blow. Kent Erdahl from our Minneapolis affiliate CARE shows us how one nonprofit is helping folks in need of a lift stay on the road.
Staff at the lift garage know tough times are often the busiest times.
Our phone system gets overrun and shuts down sometimes just because people really want appointments here.
Service manager Adam Robinson says now is definitely one of those times.
Demand is off the charts.
The shop is a nonprofit raising money in order to offer free inspections and deeply discounted repairs to any low-income Minnesotan that qualifies using federal poverty guidelines and lucky enough to get an appointment.
We open up about 100 appointments every month, and they usually fill within minutes.
But while the last 3 months of surging gas prices and inflation have been busy, he says business is another story.
What we're seeing is people saying, I'm only going to do what makes my car safe.
More customers are deferring routine maintenance or pulling out altogether.
There are plenty of times that we schedule an inspection for someone, hand them their estimate. They look at the estimate, even at our substantially reduced rates, and say, gosh, I can't afford this. And their car limps off our lot.
Is it feeling more like a counseling office in there?
We often say at the lift garage, the front desk team are housing counselors, resource navigators, grief therapists, and we work on cars on the side.
Speaking of that work,
there's pressure on us, too.
Adam says tariffs and transportation costs have increased the price of parts. And then there's labor.
Last year, we raised our rates for the first time in 12 years.
And just a year later, their labor charge, which is still far below market rates, had to go up again.
So now we're raising rates again to $28 an hour.
You got to make sure staff can keep their cars running and their life running.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody gets rich doing nonprofit work, but we got to meet our overhead and our bottom line as well.
Because he says lifting up others is critical in times like these.
It's not just the mom whose car we fix. It's me driving on the road next to them. I want every car on the road to be as safe as possible, and that's really our mission here, is putting safe vehicles back out on the road.
I'm Kent Erdahl for NBC News Now.
We're grateful you joined us today. NBC News Daily is next.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.